Good morning.
Good morning.
Is anybody there?
Good morning.
Hey, Jasmine. How are you?
Good. I thought I was going to be late this morning. I just walked in the door.
Is it raining there?
No, thank goodness. The sun's out. It's warm.
Really? Tom said he's going to be a little bit late because he's detouring around flooding. So it was nice and warm yesterday, and the sun was out. And oh, excuse me. But then it's windy, and they're calling for thunderstorms today. So then it's supposed to be pretty tomorrow. But that's okay. Let it rain as long as it doesn't flood, right?
Yeah, they have really bad flooding on 58 in South Austin. You have to
Yeah.
detour all around it.
Really? Still, the detours are up?
Yes.
Okay. Well, Aaron is joining you. How are you, Aaron?
I'm doing good this morning. How about yourself?
Doing well.
Tired.
Yeah, me too. Did you haven't taken that animal production exam yet? That first one?
Yeah, I took it Tuesday.
Okay, the written one.
Yeah, I took the written one.
Okay, I don't have a grade for that yet. Uh, I don't guess Tom's got it graded yet. Okay, I'll take. Let me change. I put a zero in there because I didn't know if you taken it or not. Uh, Everything I don't have grades for, I kind of went in there and stuck zeros in them. So everybody knows what they have turned in and what they don't and where they stand before the final if they don't turn them in. So uh, let me take that zero out since Tom will probably grade it and he will, uh, he'll either send it to me for me to grade or he'll grade it. And I don't want him to think that would be uh, that's your grade in that. So anyway, uh, I sent everybody an email this morning for both everybody in the animal production class. Your exam is online. It will be on Blackboard, and you will need scrap paper and a calculator because you have to balance rations. And you need to take that according to your exam schedule. All right. Uh, and I think Tom said y'all are taking that on Tuesday. Is that correct?
I'll take mine first.
The HR one?
No, the animal production.
I'm not sure about that one.
All right. Well, you need to figure that out because I got to grade it. I need to know when the exam is, and I need to come in and get them graded so Tom can get his final grades in. Uh, so anyway, uh, make sure you get all your assignments in. I think you got all y'all got your HR assignments in. Keith, are you here yet? All right, he may not be there yet. He's usually a few minutes late. Give me just a second. All right. Okay. Uh, Keith, are you here yet? I thought he was going to be here today, but
I thought so too.
yeah, I thought he was going to be here today and then be out of town next week. So the exam, your HR exam, uh, is on Blackboard, and it is password protected, just like the animal production exams, password protected. So you'll have to go to the testing center to be monitored and get the password. Or if Tom has you to meet in class and bring your personal computer, he can tell you the password and you can do it in the classroom during your scheduled exam. It doesn't matter to me. Okay? However, y'all work it out. Tom will be here in a few minutes, so we'll talk about it then. Uh, so, uh, what I was going to do is this class will be for you guys. Uh, and any questions you may have about the final, feel free to ask. It's a review for you guys. Do you want to know what's going to be on it? Questions? I'm going to
Yes.
be asking you
Yes.
questions. You have to answer. Being a smart aleck. But I
I
made
see.
Jasmine laugh, and I got a smile out of Aaron. So it is comprehensive because we just got to be comprehensive here at the college. So what I would do if it was me studying for this exam, because I don't like to be tricky. You know, I would study my old exams, or I don't guess you have your old exams, but you know what was on the old exam. Uh, I'd study those study guides. Uh, I'm not on the material that we were tested on already, the first two exams. I'm not going to ask anything new. It would be questions you've seen before. Okay? I'm not going to pull out some obscure question from chapter one and ask you to try to trick you up. It'll be questions you've seen before, or questions that a similar question you've seen before but asked a different way. Does that make sense?
Yes.
If I made you list something the first time, I may it may be multiple choice the second time, or vice versa. Uh, and so I would concentrate the studies on the stuff we have gone over since the last exam. But you still need to study stuff from the first two exams. He
Good
did well on
morning.
them fairly. Hey, Keith, how are you?
Oh, well, it's me, but he's here too. We both are here.
Oh, I didn't see
We,
you, Tom.
oh, no, you can't. But yeah, we just came in the door.
Okay. We were just doing talking about the exam. I'll catch you guys up to speed. It is on Blackboard. It is available now because I know Keith is going out of town next week. So I didn't know if he was what arrangements you made with Tom to take the final exam. It is
I gave him,
passport.
I gave
Go
him an
ahead.
envelope I gave him a large brown envelope.
Oh, okay.
But they were mighty small bills, I gotta say.
What was it? What was it Leon Geyer said? He said, if you're going to bribe me for a grade, he said everybody has a price. He said, but I will tell you my price. I will be able to walk away from campus, head to the Bahamas, kick back on the beach, and live the rest of my days without ever setting foot back in the U.S. again. He said that would be my price. Was it him that said that, or was it another guy there at Tech?
I mean,
You
that
remember that?
sounds a lot like something he would say. I don't happen to remember that, but I would not at all be surprised if that was him.
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to adjust my price accordingly too.
He said I'll be able to live the rest of my days by my price of being bribed out on the beach in the Bahamas without a care in the world.
Just tell me he needs to get a job working for the government.
Yeah, he does. The state government.
Then you retire and go out and get $400,000 for giving talks.
Yeah, I saw that. And you know the hypocrisy behind that just blows my mind because he was all against Wall Street, and now Wall Street's paying him $400,000 to speak. You know, my hypocrisy only goes so far, I think.
What's the old saying? Don't do as I don't do as I do as I say. Something like that.
Yeah, yeah. But for 400,000, my hypocrisy may know no bounds.
I'd give 5 talks, then retire to the Bahamas.
Oh, I give 8 or
Yeah.
10. I want to
If
live
you're a
large.
tightwad like me, though, Keith, you could retire after one talk.
Oh, I meant to tell you, I ran into your wife's former employer, and he told me that she has a job if y'all ever want to come back to South Boston.
Yeah, Dr. Burnett.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's a
he's a good guy. He's
yeah, I
funny.
like him a lot. I like him a lot. He's got a beautiful place there up on the river.
Yeah, they're off of Carter's Point.
Yeah,
Yeah, and she lived, well, we were separated, not, we were separated due to our jobs, not because of a marriage difficulty. I was working here, she was working there. Um, but uh, she lived off Carter's Point on his farm that he grew up on as a boy.
yeah,
Uh, but if you took, and that road forked, if you turn right, you go out there to his place. If you kind of went left, you go out there to the place on the river where those three rivers converge.
right.
And we went and bought kayaks. So on weekends when I'd go there, we'd go out there to that place on the river and kayak and fish.
Yeah. He invited me to come to go duck hunting there.
Oh
I don't know
yeah.
if you, yeah.
Did he tell you about how there used to be a landing strip for airplanes there on that
No,
property? Yeah.
no, he didn't.
And the drug people would fly in there and started dropping marijuana bags or drug bags, cocaine, marijuana, whatever it was. So he dished up the runway and everything and just planted grass and mows it for hay and did away with the runway because the drug people were using it too much.
I thought that's why he's always in a good mood.
Well, he wasn't a druggie. I mean, it was the drug people
I know
using
that.
to run away with the property.
Yeah,
Could be,
yeah.
but
I
he's
know.
funny.
Speaking of marijuana, there's a farmer in Kentucky. He'd gone through, put all his money into the marijuana production for hemp production, and the drug folks came by and it says TCA levels too high and burnt the whole field.
Oh, really?
It's
I
above.
know.
It was one.
I know. There's been some farmers. Virginia allows you to grow the hemp, and there were some farmers, that was harvesting it last year.
Yeah.
Uh, but I didn't know the DEA checks the
Yeah,
TCH on
it's above 0.3% or something. They burned it. So all that money and effort down the drain. And also, I can't remember the oh my gosh, the Virginia Tech professor got the Animal Science Award of the Year.
Yeah,
Oh, I
Dr.
forgot.
Ebersol.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, yeah, he got that.
Yeah,
Oh.
I saw that. I Tom, you had him too, didn't you?
Yes,
Since
I
you're animal
did.
science.
Yeah, he was my nemesis. He gave me a hard time. Mm.
Ebersol was one of these guys. If he liked you, you got along with him. If he didn't like you, it was pure torture.
I was in the
You either
second
loved
group.
the man or you hated him. There wasn't too many in betweens. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. He did not like me. So in animal production class, one of the things we had to do in a lab was everybody was assigned a cow and we had to prepare it for the show ring. Everybody in the class got an Angus, which is a nice, calm, laid-back cow. I got a limousine. That is rather the opposite. He did that to me on purpose, and I can guarantee it. I know it 100%. And I think he probably admitted to it too.
Well, well, the
Hey,
article said
hey, you.
he specializes in
Go ahead.
Charolais. That's his baby.
He came from an Angus farm
Oh,
up
it
in
said that.
Ohio.
Oh,
And if
okay.
you raised anything but Angus, he thought you were crazy.
Oh, that's okay.
Uh, but there at Tech, you know, they've they sold a world famous, they sold a bull, a Charolais bull that stood stud, and he became world famous in the Charolais industry.
Oh, okay.
And that stud service just retired him and donated him back to Tech. And I mean, he's really built up the different, the herds, the Angus and the Simmental, and I guess now they have Charolais uh, with that. So I think you know, he's done a good job for their purebred operation. Uh, and he got recognized for it, and I'm glad for him. But we didn't have that the same year, Tom, or did we? Are you the one that when you were halter braking that thing
You-
would just take off running 90,000 miles an hour?
That was
And
me. I'm wearing my boots. I'm the equivalent of skiing right there through the barn, just getting drug right
yeah, we might
along.
have had that at the same time. And the barn manager, tied that thing to the post with a really long rope, and he told you to lead it out. And as soon as that thing starts to run, you drop the rope, and that thing took off and hit the end of that long rope and flattened himself on the ground a few times.
No, I wish he would have done that with me, but no.
Okay, maybe
I
we didn't
just
have it at the same time.
Yeah,
Uh,
I had it was 91 probably is when I took it.
well, that's when I took it,
Okay.
and the spring of '91 or the fall of '91, whenever it was spring because we had to show it in Little Eye, and I
Yes.
graduated that spring.
Okay, Chris, I graduated in 92, so that's why I'm like it might have been 92 then. I can't remember. It's been
And then we
decades.
had to go. Then they went out and they tied it back to a donkey for a few more days.
Yes. Yep. They did that to me. But he ended up giving me an Angus after torturing me with that limousine for like 2
Yeah,
weeks.
you were in there, and that
Yep.
that girl was in there from Ohio. when we were doing
Um,
the breeding soundness exam on that bull. Do you remember that?
um, I remember a couple different people from Ohio there. That's why I'm like,
But
uh,
we all thought Eversaw would get fired for that comment he made.
I,
I'll tell you about it later. I'll
I'm
never
thinking I remember the comment, and you set us one for an offline conversation. Yes.
Yeah,
Uh,
we were in there the same time if you remember that.
Keith is asking about the tying a cow to a donkey. If you want to halter break a cow, a donkey is pretty stinking stubborn. So instead of the way you start breaking it by you going out there and you're walking around on one end of the rope getting dragged around water skiing, what you do is you put the halter on the cow, on a calf, and you put the other end, you hook it up to a donkey. And ultimately, where that
Put
donkey
a,
goes,
a big
that's where
strap
that calf is going to go.
on the
That
neck.
calf is going to go where that donkey is going to go because that donkey is stubborn, and it gets you a good part of the way toward breaking it. Then you just have to get it used to it having human on the other end of the rope, but it's kind of used to being pulled by the rope.
And it learns to drink when the donkey drinks. And it learns to eat when the donkey eats. Donkey wants to lay down, it's gonna be with that donkey. It can't outmuscle that donkey. So we'd set them on those donkeys a few days, and then let that nose get sore, and teach them how to give the pressure from that donkey, and then we go hop. Then we'd start working them. You had a little bit of
Yep.
advantage at that point.
Yep. Donkeys became my friends on that stunt. Whew.
Yeah, but yeah, that was yeah, I remember that. Okay, so your final exam is on Blackboard. It is password protected. I sent Tom the password, uh, and so you need to take his final according to your exam schedule, or work out the date with Tom. But it is available now because I knew you were going out of town, Keith, so I made it available in case you had to take it between now and the time you leave.
So the 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 second test covered up what the chapter 2 to 10. So this is going to be basically concentrated on 11 through 17, 18.
Yeah, it'll concentrate every. It'll concentrate. Well, it's a comprehensive exam, so there'll be
Right.
stuff from the first two exams, and then the majority of the material will be from everything we covered from the last one.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Yeah. So, uh, what questions do you have for me? Because I mean, I don't want to tell you what's on the exam, but I don't want you to do bad. But
No, just give us
uh,
the answers.
give you the answers.
Yeah.
You're going to have to know some definitions. Uh, and I told you that, you know, during lecture. The some of the terms that we saw the first two exams, like adverse impact, disparate treatment, job enlargement, job enrichment. More than likely, you know, you may see those again. Uh, in terms of what we've gone over, you know, we talked about stroke, we talked about ritual, uh, and you'll probably see those again. Uh, we talked about, you know, early in the semester, what's the main, you know, what motivates people to work for you. Uh, what's the result of, you know, worker productivity, selection tools. Why are they important? We talked about discrimination. You better know those things. We talked about what you do to protect yourself. Uh, we
Do
talked
I have
about supervisors and their roles.
you send me my
We talked
exams
about
back or
what
one and two?
makes successful
How do I
supervisors.
get them back?
Uh, we talked about involving workers in decision making. What are some keys for success for doing that?
Well, it's been online, so I mean,
Well, if they're online, then you should be able to go back and go
Uh,
click on your grade. Your grade should have
what type of characteristics you want in your workers when they make,
comment.
that you're using in decision making.
are you going to
Uh,
post a review for the last chapters?
Let me see if I got a review final on here.
I didn't see it.
Uh, I don't, do I? Well, you got the two reviews. Let me see what this one is. Uh, no, this one's not. It's not the final. No, I do not have a final exam study guide. Uh, but that's what we're doing now. So pay attention. You'll need to know how to write. If I give you an illegal interview question, you need to know how to reword that to make it legal. Like, what was the example we used a lot? Are you a resident of the United States? Is that legal or illegal?
That's illegal.
Okay, how do you rephrase that to make it legal?
Are you legal to work in the United States?
Okay, there you go. So, you'll have a couple of those you'll have to rewrite. Uh, I told you about your definitions, uh, the disparate, adverse, job enlargement, job enrichment, stroke, ritual. Thing, you need to know those. Um, what do you do to protect yourself? Um, what do you need if you have to? We talked a lot about discipline and termination. So, what are you going to do to protect yourself if you have to terminate somebody? Um, what are implications for terminating an employee? We talked about, in the disciplinary process, what's the different types of discipline you do, a progressive type deal, so that if you do have to terminate them, they know it's coming. And we talked a lot about that.
Question for you.
Go ahead,
Um,
Ken.
the PowerPoints that I printed off that you had on Blackboard, we did termination. That was chapter 15, and the next PowerPoint I had was negotiation, was chapter 18. So
That's
is
right.
16, 17 on the test?
No, we didn't go over that.
Okay. So just delete 16, 17. Okay, great.
Yes, we did. We talked a lot about human interactions or interpersonal skills with listening and communication. We talked about conflict resolution. We talked about negotiation, discipline, and termination. Uh, we talked about discipline being based on just cause. Uh, be able to list a few things to ensure that that will be effective. Uh, why be able to list some things why we would discipline somebody. Uh, let's see. We talked about conflict resolution. What's the found what's the foundation of conflict resolution and negotiation? What would that be, guys? See how well you're paying attention.
Repeat the question.
What is the what is the foundation of conflict resolution and negotiation?
Would it be listening and communication skills?
Okay, that's important. It really is. The communication skills and listening. But to get down to the meat of the matter for conflict resolution or negotiating, the common deal they have, the foundation of both of them, is you got to understand what the problem is. If you understand what the problem is in conflict resolution, then you can work to correct that. If you understand what the problem is in negotiations, then you can work to negotiate to solve that problem. But you have to know what the problem is. I think a lot of times we get into we think we have we assume the other person knows what the problem is, and it's not. They don't know. Or we're trying to negotiate something or find a solution, and we're thinking about two different problems. So you got to figure out what is the problem. What's you got to understand the problem. What are some requirements you need uh, when you're negotiating? What do we need to have? What do we need to do?
Be well prepared, show integrity,
Okay.
patience.
Patience, integrity, be prepared, control your emotions. There's a whole list of them. You need to know probably about 4 or 5 of them, with those being the big ones in my book. Being prepared, be integrity, patience. Um, what do you have to be an effect? What skills do you need to be an effective negotiator?
Listening, communication.
Patience,
Knowledge.
knowledge. You got to know your product. But come on, guys, we talked about them. We listed them. Those are good ones. But what else we need? What do you have to do to negotiate? You got to talk or just stare at each other?
Gotta have speaking skills.
Yeah, you got to have communication skills. What else? You said listening skills. You got to have those. You got to be able to listen. You got to be able to communicate. What about conflict resolution skills? Do they come into play? You bet. And then interpersonal skills. Uh, we talked about 2 types of negotiations, a traditional type and interest based. The traditional was more like a competition. I win, you lose type deal. The interest based is it's you focus on the problem and you try to come up with the solution that's best for all the stakeholders. When we have disagreements, instead of working them out, what are some alternatives that people do instead of just sitting there talking and working out disagreement?
You go to a third party individual to kind of mediate the difference between the two.
Okay, we could do that. Any others? We could avoid that person, right? We could always give in to them. We could fight with them. We could get a mediator. You could get a mediator involved to try to work out an agreement if you can't work it out between 2 parties. So there are alternatives. Um, but I would definitely avoid the fighting. No land you in court. Uh, but know some of those. Um, know the uh, traits of effective supervisors. Uh, we talked about qualities that workers need to possess when we involve them in decision making. Uh, we said that communication and interpersonal skills are keys for success when you involve workers in decision making. Uh, we talked about roles of supervisors, motivators for why people work for you. When you need, we talked about employee training. Why do we do it? When do we need to do it? We spend a lot of time with selection tools, going through a hiring process. Why is it better to have more than one tool? What are some of those tools that we can use in that selection process? And what worker productivity is the result of what?
You fade out there. What did you just say?
Worker productivity is the result of what? Two things. What makes a worker productive?
Desire and ability.
Ability. I'd go with desire. The book says motivation, so maybe the desire is motivation, or perhaps it's the supervisor motivating them pretty hard. I don't know, but it's the ability and motivation uh, for that worker productivity. I'd probably go by. I'd probably allow. I would allow desire. I wouldn't be that much of a stickler. If you do something you love, you're gonna have the desire to get better at it, right?
Yes.
Find something you like to do. So, what questions do you guys have?
How many questions on the final exam?
The exam's worth 100 points, uh, and there's about 25. There's 25 questions. Now, if there's a question, so like, we're talking about different stages of punishment or different degrees of punishment, and I tell you to name four of them. You need to name all four because it's either a 4 point or an 8 point question. So read the directions carefully. If I say list five, you need to list five because it's either a 5 point or a 10 point question. If I counted each answer as 2 points, and that's going to be 2 times 5 is 10. So if you only put two or three down, you're missing 4 to 6 points. So make sure you read and follow those directions very carefully. Because there's 25 questions but 100 points. And they're not 4 points each. Some are 2 points, some are 4 points, uh, some are 3 points, 5 points, 6 points, 8 points. I think I have 8 point question in there. Yeah, on the definitions. So Might not have given y'all the answers. Might not have given y'all the questions. But if you listened real close, you should do really well. If, depending on your other questions you have to ask me. Well, you still should do well. But what do y'all have for me? I mean, I can't, I'm not going to tell you all the questions. I'm just going to tell you some things that you probably need to study for. I mean, because we've covered a lot. Uh, you're not going to, on the questions from the first two exams or that material, I'm not going to ask you anything new. It's going to be stuff you've seen before. The only new stuff you're going to see is from what we covered from the last exam.
Can we go back and print our answers to the first exams, or I don't know how to do that if we can.
Uh, I don't know. Uh,
I think if you enabled it, they should be able to click on their grade in the grade book, and then it'll take them to see whatever feedback and stuff. And I think the questions and answers would pop up there, but that's if you check the right boxes to let them see that stuff afterwards. I'm not
do you know
completely
how to
sure.
do that?
I mean, I think that's how, check the boxes. If you like do the edit test options and then scroll down the bottom, you can check. There's things like after completion, you can check, show them the right answer, show them what they
All
put
right,
down.
hold on a second. So if I go to edit test options, let me
Yep.
put it up here. So I can come down here.
Yeah, keep scrolling. It's keep going. Okay, right there where it says after submission, then over there
Yeah.
where you can show them correct answers, selected answers. If you check those couple of boxes, then that'll let them go through and see. Hopefully they can come back and see the actual results. But that says after submission, and they've already submitted their test. So
Well, I'll let them do the submitted. Let them see what they answered.
okay,
Because I don't know if we got all those I know he didn't put all the answers on there. The only answers he put on there were like the multiple choice.
okay.
But you should be able to see the questions, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm pretty sure that's how it works, but we're just like you. I don't have student access, so I can't actually. I've never taken a test, so I can't actually click on anything to verify it. But that should be what'll let them go back and see the questions and see the answers that they chose.
Yeah,
Just
that's
by
all I
doing
need.
that.
Yeah, that's all I need to do. That'd be great. Thank you.
All right. Hopefully that will help you, Keith. I mean, I ain't
I
trying
need
to
all,
hide nothing.
I need all help I can get.
Keith, you're sitting pretty doggone good in this class.
Well, you're a good instructor. Both you and Tom are great. I learned a lot.
Well, I appreciate that, but
The
you
check
done,
is in the mail.
you worked hard. Um, so hopefully that'll help you with those first two exams. You go back there and take a look at those questions. Um, what else do you have for me, guys? I really don't want to go over anything new because it's the last day of class and I've actually covered more this semester than I have before because typically we miss a lot of school. Where I've gone into it more in depth, and I've gone more in depth in it. Normally, I'm kind of rushing through them real quick at the end of the semester to try to at least, because I think that, to me, I think the best chapters in the book that you're going to use throughout your life for everything you do is interpersonal skills, conflict resolutions, and negotiations. So I always try to hit that to some extent. But man, you're going to use those for the rest of your lives. Those are my three favorite chapters in the book uh, because those are just skills that everybody needs, in my opinion. And if you get a profession like Keith was in for several years, you will need those skills. He wasn't successful in his profession because he didn't, he had those skills. Otherwise, he couldn't have done it.
And I might just add something as I sit there and think. As you go along in your career, you might think there's roadblocks, people are out to get you and stuff. And a lot of times, I think people are trying to tell you maybe this is not the path you need to go down to, and listen to what they're trying to tell you and ask them their advice, and they'll kind of direct you in which area you should go into, and you'll find out if you listen, you'll excel, and it's a win-win situation. But if you go headstrong and say, no, I'm going to do this because I think this is right, you'll end up losing, and you'll be out in the street.
That's pretty neat. That's pretty deep. It's good advice.
Which, if y'all are interested, we could. I've got a quick real-world 5-minute case study type thing we can talk about.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, so here's the deal. The church that I go to, we have a daycare. It's like the second largest daycare in the county, kind of thing. And our church, our pastor, he's only been there about 9 months. The lady that runs our daycare, she's been running it for, I don't know, 8 or 10 years. And our last pastor, he pretty much let Bridget gave her autonomy to do whatever she wanted. She made a decision. She did this, she did that, but she isn't the best record keeper and that kind of stuff. So some things have been slipping through the cracks. So when we got the new pastor, he's setting some rules and he's setting some policies about some things about, ultimately making the daycare run more like a business as far as finance and that kind of stuff. But Bridget is kind of headstrong and she's been bucking him on some stuff. And fortunately, unfortunately, I'm a trustee of the church. Turns out we're going to end up having a meeting this Sunday, and she's probably going to get let go. And a lot of it, I've only heard one side of the story. The pastor's like, she's taking a few days off of work because her mother's having surgery, which is fine, but she didn't tell him. And, she's going to make decisions on spending money, working on stuff around the building and that kind of stuff, which is fine, but she's not telling him. And sort of, when we had this meeting Sunday, I'm going to go in there with questions of, we know the former pastor didn't set expectations for her, but did the new pastor actually set out expectations to her to tell her, if you're going to take a day off, I know you didn't used to have to tell the other pastor, but you need to go run it by me. If you're going to spend more than $1,000, I know you didn't used to have to clear it by somebody, you've got to run it by me. So right now there's a power struggle, and I only know part of one side of the story here. But this kind of stuff happens. Y'all have any thoughts or input?
Well, I think you're on the right track. Number one, you realize you've only heard one side of the story. There's always three sides to the story: yours, mine, and the truth. So I think you got to get the other side of the story. I think there's probably a power struggle going on there, like you said, because years past she had free reign to do whatever. Uh, you know, kind of when we're talking about rule enforcement, one of the times rules enforcement starts to, you know, enforcement rules gets heavy is when there's a change in leadership. You've got a new pastor, so therefore, you know, he's going to crack down on rules. Uh, so I'm like you. I think you need to. The thing I'd be worried about is just letting her go, because if she doesn't know it's coming, you could get a lawsuit faced on you without proper documentation and following those procedures we talked about. I'd be leery. So I think you need to sit down and say, hey, you know, just like what you were saying, you know, is she aware of these changes that, you know, of your expectations? You know, if she's going to miss days off or take a day off, she needs to run it by you. She has a certain amount of money that she can use, but over this amount, she has to run it by you. You know, I think you need to get all that stuff clear on the table. And then if she's not willing to abide by those, then she can leave. But I think everybody needs to know what the rules are.
Yep. Which one other rule, just for y'all to know, is this situation, like a lot of employment situations, it's one of those at will things. You know, she's there at the pleasure of the pastor, and if he decides he can't work with her, he doesn't want to work with her, you know, oh well. But I was just trying to, you know, throw it out there to the students. Did they have any other ideas or thoughts or suggestions?
Well, I can share my past. I share my past experience. I used to be, well, still am, elder in the Presbyterian Church, and I was on the personnel committee. And the worst thing you can do is fire a member of the church, because a lot of times they're not an employee, but they're a member. And dissension, you'll be surprised at what can happen within the congregation, because the whole story is never told, and then you get those who support her, or those who are against her, or those who support the minister, or against the minister, and they get down. Well, we need to fire the minister now. So you want to squelch any rumors or misinformation, or put those fires out before they're developed. And the first thing, as being on the personnel committee of the church, one of the first meetings we had a professional person, someone like you, kind of come in and talk about the rules, regulations, the do's and the don'ts. And the first thing he said, pray. He said, ask for divine direction on how to approach these problems. And if you listen, you'll know in your heart what to do. And one of the first things he said, go back to define your purpose. What are you trying to do? Are you trying to run a business to make money here off the preschool? Are you trying to educate and spread the word of God through Jesus to the students here? Those are two things you need to come up with. And the other thing, too, when you change ministers or managers or people and supervisors, you need to sit down a powwow session. The easiest thing to do is revise the job descriptions and make sure you have buy-ins on both people. So one person might have this idea what section 1 means, and the other person says, no, that's not what it means at all. Well, you need to negotiate those and then revise it and come out where it's agreeable for both people. And then I think you'll find out that most of the time you're on the same page in music, but approaching from different directions. And you'll be surprised, as we talked about communication and confronting the problem, that you really don't have a disagreement. You just basically are seeing the glass is half empty or half full. And I think that conflict resolution comes together pretty well. And it's a win-win situation for the minister and the school leader, but also for the church. And I think, and also you can give input to the congregation, you know, when you're going through discussing about the church school. What are their desires? What do they see? Maybe they have a change, or maybe they want to include this in the curriculum or something. So the more people you get involved, the better participation, and then you can get the desired results. But the big thing when you're doing this, you need an independent person govern it, not one of the persons in the middle of the conflict.
Keith, I think you're right on. I think, you know, what you said, if they fire her, it's going to have some major implications
Yeah, big
because
time.
she's a member of that congregation. And where that's a new pastor, and I've seen it time and time again, the new pastor gets somebody mad, he's looking for a job within the next year.
Yeah, he said, you know, I know that my honeymoon is over. Everybody loves me now, but that'll change after this weekend. And he's right.
And
And
also, people do lip service to the pastor. They say, "Oh yes, we agree with you, this and that," but to really find out, talk to the treasurer. After a big thing like this, you'll see that donations or contributions go way down. People vote with their pocketbook.
yeah, and I think the big thing too, the other thing you got to look at, and Keith hit this on the head, is what is the purpose of that daycare? Is it to make money or is it as a missionary function?
Which, in this case, the dispute really, it's just a power struggle. Not about really much about how to run things, but apparently the side of the story I've heard is instead of going to the pastor, she's going to members of the board asking permission for stuff. She's going to members of the board telling them that she's doing stuff instead of actually going to him for whatever reason. And they have weekly meetings, and she's doing stuff, and she doesn't mention it during these weekly meetings. That's the kind of stuff going on there. It's not big picture stuff, the mission of the daycare, the mission of the church, and that kind of stuff. It's just really it comes down to her willingness to subordinate herself to him as being her boss. That's really what's going on there.
Well, in the Presbyterian church, that would be normal because you would have the elders and have different committees. And the one committee I was on was personnel. And the session is in charge, and any change of policy or whatever has to go through the session. And even with the preacher, he's under the control of the session. So employees would come to the session. They would not go to the minister for directions and change. It would go through the session, and then they would make the decision and tell the preacher what he could do or what couldn't do. He's not really in charge.
Well, that's why, you know, we're going to be in this discussion on letting her go. But I'm talking the day to day. I'm going to take a day off from work. You know, in that case, she wouldn't be calling up the board and having a board meeting in order to talk about when she's going to take a day off of work. She would report that to her immediate supervisor, which would be the pastor. And instead of reporting to her immediate supervisor, the pastor, if she's telling anybody, she's telling other people. And it wouldn't necessarily be the board's responsibility to be the one giving her permission every time she wants to take a day off of work or leave early or that kind of thing. That's the thing. It's down to the whole thing is kind of ticky tacky. It's down to the day to day who's going to be ordering the paper clips, well, not quite that ticky tacky, but who do you tell when you're going to take a day off of work kind of thing. That's kind of nitpicky stuff. But that's the kind of stuff that they're butting heads about.
Well, I don't know what religion you are, denomination, but one of the things you want to make sure that this is not a power grab by the minister. It could be just the tip of the iceberg, and I don't know how big your denomination is, something you need to let him know. In the Presbyterian church, the session is in charge, he's not in charge. And I think once he understands that he has to work with the session to make any firing and hiring decisions, the session does that. So, and he has to make his case pro or con during that.
Well, the way we are, all the employees serve at the pleasure of the pastor, but he's running it by us in order to get backup and support, but it's not a power struggle on his part as far as taking authority from the church board.
See, that's different from Presbyterian church.
Yeah. So Jasmine, Aaron, y'all have any thoughts, ideas, comments?
Well, my church had something similar to that a couple months ago. We just got a new pastor last June, and it was this one particular family in the church. They sort of kind of ran everything while we were still looking for a new pastor and stuff. And then when he came, they still wanted to run everything instead of letting him do his job. And a couple months ago, we voted and suspended their membership. So, and they haven't showed back up to church. So that ended kind of rough.
Yeah, I've gone to other churches in the past where you have the one family that dominates and controls and stuff, and yeah. Keith's laughing. He's like, that's kind of drastic, but it's a little bit kind of what you need to do because it's not their church. It's Jesus's church / it's the congregation's church, not just that one family. And yeah,
Exactly.
that one was pretty ugly. I got to agree with you, but.
I would just go back and read Paul's letters to the Ephesians about church and church order and church dissension and stuff. He addresses it pretty well.
I think the key words you said at the beginning of what you were saying, Keith, is you sit there and pray, and to be led in the right direction.
Oh yeah, but like I said, it just is kind of ironic because a lot of this overlaps with the discussion from the last few weeks. So I thought I'd throw it out to you just purely as a human resources case study thing for a minute.
And I also think the school teacher, she needs a friend, somebody to take her out to lunch, somebody she trusts, and really kind of say, hey, this is where we are, and you need to change your ways if you want to stay on board.
And Tom, there may be some other stuff going on that you don't know about.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking for in this meeting. I'm going to be asking questions. I'm not going to be offering solutions.
Because it seems to me that this woman does not like that preacher and does not want to recognize his authority.
No, I think she likes him. She's just used to doing her own way, having her own way. And and that's just sort of, that's really it. She likes him and all. She just used to have autonomy, and she still wants the autonomy.
She's going over his head to the board and reporting to the board what she does and skipping him. I think there's something going on there. You know what I mean? She doesn't like him, lack of trust. She's gotten mad at him. There's something going on I think you don't know about. And you may not find it out. I think the only way you're going to find out her true deal is to sit down with her and get her version without him around. Because she's not going to talk in front of him because it's going to end up in a fighting match or a yelling match and a power match between the two.
Yep. Needless to say, I'm not looking forward to this weekend.
Just one thing, is this a break-even type of church school, or is it actually contributing to the bottom line and profitability of the church?
It actually contributes back to the church.
Significantly, or just kind of?
It's on its way to being significant. It's going to be significant. That's part of the thing. It should have been significant years ago, but she really got thrown into running it before she should have. And she's been kind of learning on a job, and like I say, there's been some management mistakes through the years, but that was under the old preacher, and he was kind of okay with things. And
sometimes it's hard.
Let me. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Keith.
I would say in that scenario, it's her baby, and sometimes it's hard to let it go. So I think she needs some positive strokes and saying she's done a great job and we appreciate it. it's time to move on.
And that's what I think the pastor is thinking.
Yeah.
Maybe, but the other thing you need to take count of too. You said that's one of the largest daycares in your county or in your area.
Yes.
There's a lady, I think she's retired now. I went to high school with her son. We graduated together. And this lady is great with kids. And she worked at a daycare. And whatever daycare she was at, that's the biggest daycare in town. And if she was at the Presbyterian Daycare Church, that was the biggest one in town while she was there. If she moved over to, I don't know, Dwayne Farthing's daycare, that was the biggest one in town. Those
I
kids
wouldn't send
followed
my
that
kids to
lady.
that one.
What's that?
Oh, I wouldn't send my kids to Dwayne Farthing's daycare. Oh no.
Right, but I know, but I just using that as an example.
Oh, I
But
know.
this lady was so well respected with what she did with those kids. She was very well loved by all the parents in the community, and wherever she went to, that was the biggest daycare. Am I making sense?
Yes, and I think there's going to be some of that going on here too.
So, if she's gone, you may not have that big daycare again because she's the reason people are sending the kids to her or sending them to your daycare. So
Yes.
that's something you need to consider.
Also, sometimes people can't make their own decisions. They let other people make decisions. Maybe she's looking for a termination. They give her a reason to leave, and then I don't know if she would qualify for unemployment or whatever else like that, as you talked earlier. That could be in her background too, where she resigned, she wouldn't have that option of gaining unemployment compensation.
Yeah, I don't know how unemployment falls in with churches. I never ran into that while I was at the unemployment commission.
Which I'm sure they've been taking it out of her paycheck, so she should qualify for it.
Actually, it's the employer that pays that. It doesn't come out of the
Well,
employer.
yeah, that's what I meant to say. But they've been paying it on her, I'm sure.
Okay. So if she resigns, then she probably would not be eligible. She would have to get fired or get laid off. And then even if she got fired, she may or may not be eligible. If you just up and fired her without giving her a chance to fix it or, to correct anything, then she'd probably be eligible.
Is that an issue for unemployment? I don't know this. Just asking if you don't get along with your supervisor and you are fired because of personnel conflict.
I don't know with that. I think it depends. If they just fire you to fire you and they don't have good reason, yeah, you're going to get unemployment.
Yeah. Could be like
But
workforce, hostile work
what's that?
environment. Could it be classified like the hostile work environment?
Yeah. Uh, but you know, if it's a disciplinary issue and you were told several times and it's all documented that if this behavior continues, it may lead to your termination or it could lead to your termination, then they were out. They didn't get it. They were
So
warned. It
just
was documented.
using Mr. Scales' example, if this is the first time she's confronted and they sever relationships, that didn't really give her a oral warning or written warning. They just went right to step three and fired her. So she would have legal grounds against the church then, right?
She may. I mean, even though you have that at will clause that you can fire them at will, in today's litigation society, you can get sued. if a lawyer is willing to take up her case and thinks she's got cause or, thinks she may win, yeah, he could slap a lawsuit on them.
And that was my other of my first couple of questions is, has she been communicated her expectations? And then the flip side is, I know that apparently there's been discussions and stuff with her, but it's like, have you gone beyond verbal warnings? Have you given her written warnings? Have you sent her home a day or two? And so that's my question. If there was no expectations given to her about, now you got to check for the example, now you got to check with a pastor before you take a day off of work. That expectation wasn't there, and then she's never been warned for violating those rules, then the church is opened up for some big time legal troubles. But if the expectations had been communicated, and there's been not only verbal warnings, but if we get to the written warnings and stuff, then the church would be covered. And that's really the questions I'm going to be asking Sunday.
Because
And
if it's
that's
not documented, it didn't happen.
exactly. And those are the questions I'm going to be asking right off of the bat in that meeting Sunday. And then I'm going to sit there with my mouth shut.
Just listening to what's been said in the last few minutes, and if I was a judge looking over this case, I would say that the instructor or director of school would win because she'd be able to produce probably dozens and dozens of supporting people and parents that she's done a great job over these years. And it wasn't until the new minister came in and changed the apple cart that everything went to hell in a handbasket. So I think she would win in a legal setting.
Yeah, especially if there's no embezzlement or anything going on illegal. If she's ran it legally to the best of her abilities, I think she would win. I'm with Keith on that one.
Because that goes back to when I said earlier about the change in management, and usually when that comes out, the company is going to side with the supervisor, their management person in place. But even though you're right, you'll lose. But what they would do is give you a substantial severance package to kind of disappear.
Yeah, when that happened to my dad, and he got outed in a management, they combined some companies together and they got rid of dad. They gave him a severance package. But one of his coworkers, who was the same age as dad, he said, "You need to give me back my job. This is age discrimination, and I will fight you for it." They hired him back. They didn't lay him off because they didn't want that lawsuit. Dad found another job, but you know,
But how astute you are in a situation like that. You're talking about negotiations. If that means you get a larger severance package, so you don't take them to trial, because the worst thing the company wants, even though they might lend the EOC conflict or suit, it still goes up, flags the company, and so if they get enough of those in a while, even though they win them, there's something that will say something's going on at this company. So you can negotiate that and say, look, I'll go away quietly, will not file legal charges against you. I want this plus this. A lot of times the companies will do that. At least my company, they didn't with some of the employees.
huh. My dad, he's a class act. He just took the severance and went and found him another job. Karma has a way of rearing its head. That company got in financial trouble. The original owner that sold, that started the business, his pride got the best of him and did not want to see his product being ruined like it was. So he bought back into that company and goes and hunts my dad down and brings him back. So the company that bought out the original company and got rid of my dad had it thrown in their face. Hey, we're bringing this guy back. I got control But anyway, I just thought it was kind of ironic.
One last question. A lot of this can be traced and answered back. Did you ever read the book, What Color's Your Parachute?
I haven't yet. I got to
You got to
I
read
got to order it.
all that. You can get it. You can get it on Amazon used, cost a couple bucks, and all these issues. And I think it'd really uh, be good for the class to get it too, to read it.
Okay. I'll order it and read it this summer. I was thinking about the other day, uh, so I just need to get it done.
And the other book I'd highly recommend, Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends, Influence People. And
I got
the
that
other,
one.
yeah, and read it. You'll be surprised over the years. You think you know it, then you'll pick up things. And the last thing, The 1 Minute Manager. If you get that book,
You know, I haven't heard of it. I read How to Influence Friends, and it's been several years, so I think I need to pick it up and read it again. And I've read the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Covey. Um, I like that one.
yeah, but pick up The 1 Minute Manager.
Okay, 1 Minute Manager and What Color's Your Parachute?
Yeah, then your library is complete.
Okay, thank you very much
No problem.
for your
I'll
literary
send you.
recommendation.
I'll send you my bill at the end of the month.
All right, checks in the mail. All right, guys. Hey, it's been fun. I really enjoyed having y'all in class. I hope you learned. I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you do well on the final exam. So get with Tom on your exam schedule on how y'all going to do that. And Tom, if you'll send me an email or a text on when they're supposed to take this exam, and I'll go in there and I'll get it graded and put their grades on Blackboard so you can get your grades in as soon as possible.
Okay. And I sent you an email earlier for my test. I put it in Blackboard. I spent way too long doing that yesterday. But I've got it in Blackboard. I sent you the password for it so you can give it to Evan.
All right, let me check that real quick. Okay, I got it.
All right.
All right.
Which I'm sort of putting a deadline for like all of these for the online students or whatever to do them by like Thursday.
Yeah. Well, now I told the online students all but Evan. Evan, I can't do that because our classes don't officially end to May the 4th.
Well, I
But I
meant
told
next
the
Thursday,
other
but
ones
yes.
they need to have that done at your exam schedule, so
Okay.
that you can get those grades in by that date.
Okay.
Uh, so hopefully, um, I think it's just Carrie and Evan the only one taking this online, right? This class.
Um, maybe. Yeah,
I'm
Carrie.
thinking it is.
It's Carrie and Carrie and Evan. Well, technically Keith, but
Well, Keith's here, and he's
yes,
going to take it early, right?
yes.
All right, Keith, you have a good trip.
If you're ever out in Bracy, you want to come to Lake Gaskin, I'll take you on the pontoon boat.
And get stung by bees or eaten by a bear.
Gaskin, is that Lake Kerr out there beside Clarksville?
Yeah,
Is
that's
that
the
another
beginning of
name
it.
for it? Or
Yeah,
Bud's
well, that's where
Island or something?
that's the Gaskin Dam, Kerr Dam that separates the two. The Kerr
Okay.
Lake is a collection of the Roanoke River. Then from that point on, it's Lake Gaston for the next 35 miles.